Welcome back to another Tabletop Live video. We're going to be doing another adapting to the meta with the Space Rules today. It's a new year, we got a new chapter approved. This is post LVO, so I'll be going over my LVO list and how it's now changed based on my experiences, my losses, and what I'm anticipating in the meta. And I'll also be going over the strengths and weaknesses of the new list and how I'm expecting the list to play on the new missions. I've not played any of the new missions. I've gone over all of them. I've got some notes. I'll be doing a video on the new missions and my thoughts on them. But this is purely in a vacuum how I expect the list to do without knowing what my opponent is and without taking into consideration how they might play. It will obviously change drastically if I'm playing against a gun line or a combat army, but this is on paper what the missions and the new objective layouts look like and how I think my list will play. So let's get right into it. Alright, so adapting to the meta, the new 2022 meta with the new objectives and the new points and new codices and Tal coming out with railguns and Elder on the way and Chaos right after him. So this is, to give perspective of what the list is going to be about, I am going to a super major in the UK on February the 12th, I think. So next weekend basically, and the meta is going to be the same as LVO, except with the new missions and new points. The Tau did not make the cutoff, so Custodes, Nids, and G's to the Cult are the big boogeymen. So that's what I've tailored the list against, and I'll go over how that's impacted my matchup predictions, and if I think it's actually going to work or not. So the old list for LVO. This is what it was. I made a video before LVO going over the list, how it works, and my expected matchups. I was pretty spot on. I got my butt whooped by Tyranids and Custodes, which were the two matchups that I was worried about. Crusher was a 50-50 chance, and then Custodes was a very uncomfortable matchup just because they can really mitigate my damage. So this is the old list. But the new list is slightly different. I've now dropped my Lieutenant. So my Chapter Master is another one carrying the Armor of Rust, and he has a Thunder Hammer because the Frost Claw that he used to run, that was a 2 damage claw, was a relic, so he can only take 1 relic, so I have to have Armor of Rust. So he now has a hammer, and he has also Rites of War. So he's now more of a support character. He still has Hunter, so you can go still kill something far away, but without wound rerolls and without volume of attacks, it's not very consistent. He's just there as more of a support character and a late game objective taker. And I've got the Primaris Chaplain, same loadout, Cataclysm of Fire for the Intercessors and some of my multi-meltas. He still has a +2 to charge and Benediction of Fury, so he can do some damage in combat. For troops, I've now added a 5-man Infiltrator squad. This is for the Genes to the Cult because they can deep strike 8 inches away. This pushes them back pretty far. It keeps most of my backfield objectives pretty safe, so I'm not worried about having to dedicate extra units to screen my home field objective. The reason why I only have one is because most of the missions only have one home field objective, so having these guys on that objective will keep that objective pretty safe. I still have my Incursors for 4 deploy, and then the Intercessor squad is still there just because it helps me with T3 matchups like Sisters, Old School Drukhari, Gaunts. There's still 30 shots. I can shoot them twice. They've got 2 grenade launchers in there. And then the Sergeant has a Thunder Hammer now just because they got into combat more often than I wanted them to. So now at least they can do a little bit of damage. These guys are still 30 attacks in combat with my full buffs. This is still the same Super Doctrines. The Successor traits. So Born Heroes for +1 to hit and Whirlwind of Rage for the Exploding Sixes. So these guys still hurt in combat. By the way, by dropping that Lieutenant, it's freed up 2 CP. So this list now starts on 8 CP. So that lets me do a lot more tricks, like putting these guys into Old Doctrine, shooting them twice, Transhuman. I've got a lot more CP to play with, defensively and offensively. Elite-wise, I still have my 3 Wolf Guard squads. They've changed a little bit. So I still have my 2 5-mans, but one of the 7-man has now dropped to a 5-man, so no more Combi Melta Storm Shields in there. And I had to drop 2 Storm Shields in one of the squads because these guys are 158. The math is very annoying when it adds up. So I dropped 2 Storm Shields, 2 Lightning Claws, just because it frees up a point per model. And I'll just use them earlier on for trading. As long as they don't get shot, they don't die. And they go into combat and they do roughly the same damage, and they were still gonna die early game because my opponent still has a lot of the units, so they're just there to die and trade. But now Wolfen are back. We have 2 squads of Wolfen at 145 points per squad with 4 Thunderhammer Storm Shields. These guys are amazing. Their damage has always been ridiculous. After 8th edition and with the new Space Wolf supplements, they lost a lot of the survivability and threat range because they can't advance in charge and they don't have a Phenol Pin anymore. But now that they've dropped down in points, and like a lot, so they used to be like 180-ish for the 4 hammers. So they dropped down tons of points. I think it's 8 points per model they dropped. These guys are now going to sit behind the wall on an objective, and you have to go kill him in combat if you want to take that objective off me, and they're just going to fight on death. So they're going to give me a lot more objective and board control. Disclaimer, I will be playing on WTC terrain a lot. This list has been designed to play as part of a team for WTC. So denser terrain with a lot more ruins and bottom floor obscuring pieces of terrain is what I'm going to be playing this list on more. So Wolfen are going to work great on there. I still think they're absolutely worth taking in any Space Wolves list, regardless of terrain. I've got my 2 Cyber Puppies just because I love them. I know they don't count towards engage, but for oath, for objective holding, for screening, for move blocking, I still love them. They're fun. And then in heavy support, I still have my long flank squad in the drop pod, but now I have an Eradicator squad. And the reason because I won the Eradicator squad is because the heavy melter rifle, when it's within half range, so 12 inches, it's plus 4 damage, plus d6. So 4 plus d6 damage on every shot. And they can shoot twice if they shoot the same target. So it's 4 shots of heavy melta and 4 shots of multi-melta. And they're here for Custodes. I want every single failed save to kill a Custode. So they're flat minimum 3 damage at long range and minimum 5 damage at short range. So when those bikes come in, even if they transhuman and shut off rerolls, which is going to suck, I'll try and bait that out somewhere else. They are there to do tons of work, and every failed save needs to kill a bike, because when I go into combat and they shut off my rerolls and they transhuman, I can't kill 3 bikes in combat, even with my super killy units. So I need to be taking out single models per failed save. So that's why they're there. And the Long Fangs is still there to threaten. They still hurt Custodes when they come in range. But the Eradicators, I'm hoping, are there to scare the Custodes. And then when I play against Crusher, they can pop a Dimacaron on their own if they hit and wound and the opponent fails saves, right? Like, that's what everyone says. But because every failed save has a very high potential to do a lot of damage, I'm hoping there will be a very good target for Hive Guard, and the Hive Guard will leave my Wolf Guard alone. So if the Hive Guard spend turn 1 killing my Eradicators, if I transhuman them, it might require both volleys to kill the Eradicators. So maybe my Wolf Guard will still alive and I'll be able to do some damage. If I go first, they can really put some damage. The Eradicators can pick up a big monster. The Long Fangs can pick up another big monster. And my Wolf Guard and Wolfen can get into position. But that's the list. Those are the biggest changes highlighted in red. I've lost the Scouts. I've lost the Speeders. So a lot less mission play, but a lot more killing power. And the reason why I did that is, I just went through all my units actually. So Infiltrators are there to screen the Gene Stealer Cult. Damn it. I had all this presentation planned. The Wolf in the back. 3 squads of trading. I just explained all of this. Oh, the Eradicators, I've never used them. I don't know if they work. I hope they work. They look good on paper. The threat of them might scare my opponent. My opponent, like, especially if I'm playing against like Thick City, the Talos might stay back a little more. I don't know. I'm hoping they'll give me a little more board control in between the Eradicators and the Devastators. That's a lot of planning and threat ranges that my opponent has to measure, and that might mess up their play. Anyways, the strengths of the list. As I said, it has tons of killing power at range with the Eradicators and Intercessors, and the drop pod coming in where I need it, and then in combat with every single unit doing work. I've got multiple profiles, so the Intercessor with a 60 shot can clear a horde, and then the Eradicators and Devastators kill tanks, and then in combat I can kill both. And it's still very good at punishing mistakes. It's still a fast list. I still have Hunter, but with less like Scouts and Speeders to like touch objectives, deny stranglehold and that kind of stuff, I have to be a lot more aggressive to punish these mistakes. So position is going to be more important than ever. I don't have these 27-inch move Scouts that can go and touch your objective if you don't put any obstacle on it. So we'll have to see if it pays off or not. But the weaknesses are definitely the mission play. I used to take Rod, Oath, and Strangle in all my games, and now switching out Rod for Investigate Signals. This is one of the new secondaries that got revamped. This secondary requires me to do an action in the middle, and it's completed at the end of my turn as long as there are no enemy units wholly within 6 of the center, and it's 3 points. So it has the potential to score me max points, which is good for big tournaments where there's going to be several undefeated players. I need to be maxing out my points as much as possible. This is one thing I learned at LVO, is taking Rod every game where it's capped at 12 lost me 3 points per game per round, and when you have 150 plus players, those 3 points is going to be the difference in like 10 to 20 spots in the ranking. So I need the ability to max my points. Now this is not knowing what I'm going to be playing against. If I'm playing against Crusher, I might not want to put units in the middle. If I'm playing against Thick City, I might not want to put units in the middle. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work out, but this is the plan. In terms of other options, I can still do Rod with the Incursors bouncing around. And the Wolf Guard can do it early turns in my deployment zone while they're not engaging. So I can still do Oath with the Doggos and Strangle by sending like 1 unit out at a time. But I'm trying to castle up in the middle, rush the middle, and control the middle. And we'll see that with the objective layouts, because I think it'll synergize pretty well. I have less screening units and less Oath units, as I mentioned. But I mean, if I'm smacking my opponent around, I might not have to play the mission. That's how my opponents were playing, so maybe I'll give it a go. So, matchup expectations. This is the old matchups. This is when I was going into LVO. My worst matchups were Genestealer Cult and Custodes, followed by Admech because I was uncomfortable. Then Crusher was a 50-50, depending on who went first. And with the new changes, Thick City, I think, has gone a lot better between the Wolfen and the Eradicators. I've just pumped up my Strength 8 damage. So instead of having tons of points in Speeders and Scouts, I now have even more damage, which I think will help me against Thick City. Now, Nid's Horde list with all the Gaunts, without the Scouts and Speeders, I have less units to go tag those Horde units and the Hive Guard. And the Eradicators do nothing in this matchup, so that's gone down a little bit. I'm still feel a little comfortable if I go first, and it's exactly the same as Crusher. So now, if I go second, I'm hoping the Hive Guard will focus the Eradicators first. In the Horde list, they won't, but in the Crusher, I think they will. And then in terms of Orcs, I can still pop kill rigs. I can still take out the big units of what are they called? The Mega Nobs. So with all the Melta and all the flat 3 damage that I have, so I'm hoping those matchups get a little better. Old School Drukhari went down just because I have less mission play units, less units to send onto objectives, and so on. And Admech as well. I used to rely on being able to score a lot of points against Admech to beat him. I haven't played against Admech in a while, so I don't know if it'll work out or not. I don't know what the Admech list look like. Richard Siegler's list is insane. But with the Wolfen and with him having no artillery, maybe I can trade for those Rust Stalkers pretty well. It all depends on how well he can shoot my Wolfen. But my Wolfen being able to trade for 2 units, as long as they don't get shot, is pretty good. G-Stud Code went up just because of the Infiltrators and the Wolfen. Them not being able to charge my backfield objective and then having to charge into Wolfen and trading those units, I think might go a very, very long way. I have to be careful about those pure strains going into my Wolfen, because I don't want to lose my Wolfen to his initial attack, so I have to be careful about how I deploy. And then Custodes, in theory, I have all the profiles I need to wipe Custodes. The Eradicator should be able to pick up 1 or 2 bikes. The Wolfen should be able to trade for 1 squad of infantry. I don't think they'll trade for the bikes unless they charge in. But I now have multiple units that can hit multiple of their units and bait out those transhuman and shut off rerolls, both in shooting and combat. So in theory, I should be doing well into Custodes. Another thing to mention is player place terrain at LVO was very good for me. I will be playing on set terrain. In the UK, the terrain is slightly light as far as I can tell from the photos. But for WTC terrain, depending on, because it's a team format, I should be able to pick the denser terrain. So I don't know, I have to see what it looks like. But I am worried about the set terrain on UK tournaments. This is going to be my first UK tournament, but I guess we'll learn from how it goes. And then in terms of the missions, so I've divided them to the 3 sets of 3. So the first 3 missions, recover the relics is the old retrieval, and this one's rough for me because I can't reach my opponent's objectives very safely. They're, 20 inches away from my deployment zone, so that's pretty rough for me to charge onto. I have to play that mission a little slower. However, defensively, I can get my wolfen into these objectives, assuming there's ruins on those objectives on my side. So I should be able to hold my objectives pretty well, but I can't really threaten my opponent's objectives, and I can't really do strangle on this mission. So this mission I have to think about the missions because there's nothing in the middle. So oath and investigate signals is gonna hurt, and then I can't do strangle. So my 3 planned secondaries that I've tailored my list towards don't work on this mission. So maybe banners, engage, and oath, I guess. I don't know. I'll figure it out when I play it. Tear down their icons. This one, these objectives are set, and because there's an objective in the middle, I can definitely do my strangle, oath, and investigate signals and just rush the middle and control the middle. The deployment is very good because I can hold my 2 objectives on my side very safely with minimal resources, and then it's not a bad distance to reach the center objective from my deployment zone. So I like this mission a lot. I think I'm gonna have a good time on this mission. And then in terms of my opponent getting angles onto my deployment zone and objectives, I think it will be pretty safe. Data Scry and Salvage, it's the old vital. Again, nothing in the middle, which messes with my plan, but all the objectives are down the center line, so I can definitely do strangle and I can definitely do oath, and I'll probably do... Here I can do rod because I can get 3/4 very easily, and then my opponent's backfield I'll try and get with my incursions on infiltrators on the last turn. So I think I can do those secondaries and do okay, but this will be matchup dependent on how aggressive my opponent can play, because I'm going to require one unit per objective to go and take it out. My intercessors should be able to do work on this terrain. If they can get a good line of sight on one objective and charge another, I can put 10 obstacle bodies on an objective. So the first 3, not looking great, but it gets a lot better, I promise. So Abandoned Sanctuaries, amazing mission for me, I think. Something in the middle for me to go take and do my secondaries, and then 2 objectives on the center line that I can go hit with my Wolf Guard. They're 18 inches apart, and with some good positioning, I can go hit those objectives very reliably. Again, I'm not thinking about what I'm playing against and what my opponent is trying to do. I'm just thinking of how my list wants to act. So if I can shoot one of these objectives, charge the other, and ball up in the center, I think I'll be very comfortable. Same for conversion. Great deployment for me to be super, super aggressive. I can hit all the objectives. So I feel comfortable on this mission. It's one of my favorite missions. It used to be called Sweep and Clear. I like this deployment. I've always had a lot of success. I can play my 3 objectives and score my points, and as long as I'm scoring strangle and investigate signals, because it's all scored at the end of my player turn. Oath isn't, so going second, this mission's amazing. Going first is a little more complicated, but I doubt my opponent will want to come close to the middle. And then the Scouring, everyone's favorite mission. This is the mission that I lost against Custodes because I couldn't score primary. He kept denying on my primary. He played super well, but now with the Eradicators, maybe I can play slower turns 1 through 3, and then once I've removed his resources, I can explode out with my Wolf Guard and my Chapter Master with Rights of War. So I've always enjoyed that mission because I know how to play it well, says the guy that scored 0 primary last time we played on it, but we'll figure out for the next one. And then the last 3 look great. The Tide of Conviction, I love this objective layout. Those 2 center objectives can be held as I'm scoring investigate signals and oath. So I can hold that objective and the one in my deployment zone and then just go to the one on the side or threaten my opponent's home objective. So it's going to be great to be able to see my secondaries and objective holding synergize. But because they're all close to the middle, my opponent, if they play very aggressively, I'm going to have to be careful. Now this is where the Wolfen shine. If I put Wolfen on that objective, it's going to be hard for my opponent to take back if there's good terrain. Because they're in a position where it's going to be hard to get an angle onto that objective, and the only way to take it out is by charging it. So my Wolf Guard are going to excel, and my Wolfen are going to be very good at defending them. Death and Zeal, very similar to the mission that we looked at before. Same layout. same story. I think it's going to be great for my list and my secondaries. And then secure missing artifacts. This is the old priority targets where you get to move your objectives around. I'm thinking I'll try and move all the objectives as close together as possible so my wolfing can go down and start doing some damage and start trading for objectives. If I spread them out, depending on my opponent, it also might be beneficial, but regardless, I can still do Strangle, I can still do Investigate, I can still do Oath. So the fact that there's objectives in the center of the table on every single mission except 2 is really beneficial for the list that I've built. But I mean, as I said, I haven't played any of these missions. So the theory's there, it looks good on paper. It's all going to change once I start playing, once the terrain gets laid out, and once I see my opponent's list. But that is my adapting to the meta. That's the new list. That's what the matchups look like, and that's what the new missions look like. So please let me know what you think if you've played these missions. I know a lot of people have already started playing tons. But let me know what you think in the comments, and if you think I'm gonna have any luck, give me a like and let's see how it goes. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with your friends if you think this was interesting. And please let me know what you think in the comments. I've got no idea. I'm gonna start playing tons of tournaments and games. I'll be recording all those tournaments and games, and we'll be posting them as we did with LVO. But I'm super excited. These look like great layouts, a lot more interesting. As I said, like, there's only a couple Dawn of War missions, or the other ones, and a lot more interesting deployment zones, and I think it's going to spice up the game a lot. And then the new primary and secondaries, I'll be going over those soon, and you'll get a video on those. But again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.